Hello friends and welcome back to Marsh Studio. I'm William Seiji Marsh. This is the second video of a multi-part series on triads and their inversions and learning how to voice lead fluidly between them. In the first video we covered the basic structure of a triad, how to play all 12 shapes of the close voiced G major triad and all 12 shapes of the A minor triad on the neck, and how to voice lead between G major and A minor triads across the neck. Once you're comfortable with these two exercises outlined in part 1, you're ready for what I'm about to show you in this video. In this second part, we'll distinguish the diminished triad from a minor triad and explore the chords that belong in the key of G major. You'll learn an exercise for playing all the chords in the key of G major, ascending in seconds, and then descending in seconds. We'll expand this exercise to cover 3 other major keys: C major, F major, and D major. A diminished triad is made up of 3 notes, like the major and minor triads. A major triad consists of the root, the major third, and the fifth. A minor triad consists of the root, the minor or flatted third, and the fifth. A diminished triad consists of the root, the minor third, and a diminished or flatted fifth. That means that we can find a diminished triad by simply taking an existing minor triad, identifying which voice is the fifth of the chord, and then lowering it by a half step. Let's start with the G major triad in first inversions on strings 4, 5, and 6. The third is in the bass on the 6th string at the 7th fret, and the fifth is on the 5th string at the 5th fret, and the root is on the 4th string at the 5th fret. Knowing that a minor chord is distinguished by the lowered third, if we lower the bass note of this voicing by a half step while retaining the other 2 voices, we'll end up with the G minor triad. From here, by lowering the fifth of the chord, we'll have a G diminished triad. The fifth of this G minor triad is in the same place as it was for the G major triad we started with, on the 5th string at the 5th fret. Let's lower that to the 4th fret and refinger the other 2 notes to keep them in the same position. Now we have the G diminished triad in first inversion, with the minor third in the bass, the diminished fifth in the middle, and the root on top. Let's find all of our F-sharp diminished triads. We're looking for F-sharp diminished because this is the one diminished triad in the key of G major. For future reference, the triad based on the 7th scale degree is the only diminished chord in any given key. Starting with the G diminished triad in the first inversion that we just found on strings 4, 5, and 6, we can find the closest F-sharp diminished triad by simply shifting the entire chord down a half step to frets 5, 3, and 4, from low to high. On the same string set, let's move to the next chord voicing. Find your second inversion G major voicing at frets 10, 10, and 9. Remember, a second inversion voicing is defined by the bass note being the fifth of the chord. In this voicing, we have the root on the 5th string at the 10th fret and the third of the chord on the 4th string at the 9th fret. Let's start by lowering the third to make it a G minor triad. We can make it a G diminished triad by lowering the fifth of the chord, located on the 6th string, by a half step. Let's back up to the G major triad again and look at this from a different perspective. If you want to turn a minor triad into a diminished triad, you just have to lower the fifth of the chord. The difference between a major chord and a minor chord is that the third of the chord is a half step lower in the minor chord than it is in the major chord. That means that a diminished chord is a major chord with both the third and fifth lowered by a half step. So said another way, by taking a major chord and moving everything except for the root down by a half step, you can find a diminished chord. So again, starting with our second inversion G major chord at frets 10, 10, and 9, let's identify the root. It's on the 5th string at the 10th fret. Now keep that note right where it is and lower the other 2 notes by a half step. Now we have a different way of finding the diminished chord. Either start with the minor triad and lower the fifth, or start with a major triad and lower everything but the root. Now take this G diminished triad and lower the entire voicing by a half step. That gives us our F-sharp diminished triad in second inversion. To find the final voicing on this string set, we'll start with the root position G major voicing at frets 15, 14, and 12. This might be an easier voicing to grab on an electric guitar than an acoustic, but just do what you can. This particular voicing is an octave higher than the first G major voicing we started with in the first video. It wasn't included in the exercises we covered, but take a moment to see if you can see how it resembles the root position G major at frets 3, 2, and 0. Root position means that we have the root in the bass, so let's just keep that note there and shift the other two voices down 1 fret each. Now we have a G diminished triad in root position. This one can be a little bit stretchy, but with practice it can become more comfortable. If you're having trouble reaching it, try positioning the neck in a more vertical angle, like this. You can achieve this with a footstool or by shortening your guitar strap. Now take this voicing and lower it all the pitches in the chord by 1 fret. There's our F sharp diminished triad. Take some time to map out the remaining F sharp diminished triads on the remaining string sets. As I mentioned in the first video, it's important for you to spend some time doing this work yourself. Engaging with the information is how you integrate it into your playing. For now, I'll demonstrate where you can find the remaining inversions. On strings 3, 4, and 5, the lowest possible voicing is the second inversion at frets 3, 4, and 2. The next voicing is the root position voicing at frets 9, 7, and 5. And the first inversion voicing is at frets 12, 10, and 11. Notice that the last 3 voicings are the same shapes as those we found on strings 4, 5, and 6, but shifted down 5 frets or up 7 frets. On strings 2, 3, and 4, our lowest voicing is the root position voicing at frets 4, 2, and 1. The next voicing is the first inversion voicing found at frets 7, 5, and 7. The final voicing is the second inversion voicing at frets 10, 11, and 10. On strings 1, 2, and 3, the lowest voicing is the first inversion here at frets 2, 1, and 2. It's like a D7 chord without the open D string. The next voicing is the second inversion at frets 5, 7, and 5. The final voicing on the string set is the root position at frets 11, 10, and 8. I'll now demonstrate an exercise for familiarizing yourself with these shapes. You can find a PDF of this exercise linked in the video description titled Triad Inversions Exercise 3. I'll play it at 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that we're familiar with all the close-voiced major, minor, and diminished triad shapes on the guitar, let's start incorporating them into a harmonic context. The next few lessons of this series are going to involve moving between the chords in a given key in 3 different intervals. I've created a system of practice to familiarize the guitarist with all of the ways one can move from one chord of the key to another. In case you're not familiar with the diatonic chords of a given key, I'll take a moment to explain this concept. In any given key, you have 7 unique notes. The key of G major, for example, which we'll focus on first, comprises the following 7 notes: G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. The key of G major is defined by the presence of those 7 notes and the exclusion of the other 5 notes. If we were to stack these notes in thirds in all of the possible combinations, we would end up with exactly 7 triads: G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, and F sharp diminished. Because the major scale has a very specific intervallic structure, the chord quality associated with each note of the scale is the same regardless of what key you might be in. This means that regardless of what major key you're in, the first chord will always be major, the second chord will always be minor, the third chord will always be minor, and so on. This gives us a shortcut when it comes to identifying what chords we'll be playing for any given key. Just remember, starting from the first note of the key: major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. There are a limited number of ways a chord can move to another chord, given that the chords belong to the same key. If we're staying in one key, as many songs do, any given chord can move in one of 6 ways: up or down a second, up or down a third, or up or down a fourth. What about the 5th, 6th, and 7th, you ask? Well, those intervals are what you could call an inversion of the 4th, third, and second intervals, respectively. For example, moving up from G to A minor would be an interval of a second, but if you were moving down from G to A minor, that would be the interval of a seventh. Since we'll be moving in the shortest distance possible in these exercises, we don't need to concern ourselves with these large leaps. By practicing both the ascending and descending forms of these exercises, we'll be covering all the possible intervals in any key. In Triad Inversions exercises 4.1 through 4.4, we'll practice playing the 7 chords of the keys of G major, C major, F major, and D major, ascending and descending in seconds. These are often referred to as chord scales because you're playing the scale in chords. I recommend familiarizing yourself with the G major chord scale first, and then adding the other keys. For example, start by practicing exercise 4.1 for a few days before adding in 4.2. If this concept is familiar to you and you have the time to jump in with all 4 exercises on a daily basis, then feel free to start with all 4. Just remember, there is no right or wrong way to go about this. The key is consistent daily practice. There's no rush in learning these. Go at your own pace. Although I've included only the 4 keys in this video, you'll eventually want to repeat this exercise in all 12 keys. The remainder of the video will be a demonstration of exercises 4.1 through 4.4. You can find a link to all of these exercises in PDF format in the video description. If you find this video helpful, I'm inviting you to share this with other guitarists in your life. And of course, hit the subscribe button so you won't miss the next installment of my method. Thanks so much for watching, and please leave any questions you have in the comments, or hit me up in my DMs. See you soon for lesson 3. Here's Triad Inversions exercise 4.1. I have the metronome set to 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's Triad exercise 4.2, C major. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's Triads exercise 4.3, key of F major. 1, 2, ready, go. And here's Triad Inversions exercise 4.4, key of D major. 1, 2, ready, go.